Back to our top story right now, and a new report showing the Obama administration knew about the problems with the website months before the launch in October, possibly as early as April. All of this will be brought up at a hearing today on the Hill, and in that hearing will be Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise with me now. Sir, good morning to you.
Hey, morning, Bill. Good to be with you.
So we now see the concerns were raised in March of last year. What do you know about this, about the website rollout then?
Well, Bill, of course, we're all seeing the debacle of not just the website, but also all of the other problems related to people losing policies. A lot of things we predicted years ago, and the president said that we were wrong when we were making these predictions. It turns out the White House actually was aware of all of these debacles months ago. In some of the hearings we had recently, we had Secretary Sebelius and others saying everything's going to be fine, the rollout's going to be fine, the website will be fine. In fact, we're now seeing in these reports that those top officials knew months ago that everything was not fine. In fact, there was chaos over at CMS where you literally had nobody in charge.
Let me slow you down just a little bit, because you mentioned those top officials. Who saw it? Who was made aware of it then in the spring?
Well, this goes all the way up to Secretary Sebelius, Tavener over at CMS. You had the chief technology officer at the White House who was made aware of all of these problems, and yet the president's out there saying this is going to be like buying a TV on Amazon. Well, of course, if you go to Amazon, you can actually get hundreds of options and actually make the purchase right there on the spot. This website is a national embarrassment, and the president should have known about it. If he didn't know about it, then there should be people being held accountable and fired. If this was the private sector, look, I used to write software for a living. We would test the smallest changes for weeks. They were making major changes at literally days before rollout and not testing anything.
All
so
right,
this was doomed for failure.
Two specific questions then. You can confirm that Kathleen Sebelius was aware, is that right?
That's what this report shows, that she was actually in these briefings.
Can you confirm the president was briefed on this by someone at some point?
We don't know that yet. Clearly, there were people in the White House that were briefed on this. And look, if you're working for the president, you're in the White House, and you're being told that this website is not going to work, that there are all these major problems, not little glitches, major problems, and you didn't tell your boss, then you should be fired. But if that person did tell the boss, then the president needs to come clean. And it's one of the two. Either the president knew about it and just misled the public, or he was misled by his own top staff in the White House, and he ought to fire those people today.
This was done by a group, McKinsey & Company. It has an outstanding national reputation. I mean, just about everybody, every major company in America calls it McKinsey when they need to troubleshoot something, and in this case they did as well. So on April 18th of last year, Kathleen Sebelius appears before your committee, right?
Yeah, she appeared and said everything will be fine.
That day she said everything will be okay.
Yeah, she said the website was moving on track, everything was on track. And clearly from this report from McKinsey, that is not the case. So we've got very serious questions, in terms of the kind of testimony. Were we getting honest and candid testimony from the secretary and others under her in that agency when we were asking them those direct questions months ago?
Okay, here is a statement from the White House that may come up today. On the screen for our viewers, nobody anticipated the size and scope of the problems we experienced once the site launched. Now, since that time, experts have been working night and day to get it functioning, and that is where our focus is and should be right now. Nobody anticipated the size and scope of the problems we experienced. Does that fly?
It doesn't look that way from the McKinsey report, which clearly shows multiple major problems. Again, these aren't minor problems we're talking about. They were making major changes all along the way, and this was what McKinsey talked about in this report, that not only was there no single person in charge, which is not the way to run a major program like this, but they were also continuing to make major changes where you didn't have a clear scope of what was success. There was no definition of success, so how are you going to have a successful rollout if they couldn't even define what success was over at CMS when they were developing this software package?
The hearing begins in 40 minutes. You put out a statement saying that it's kind of like somebody setting your house on fire, bringing a bucket to put out the fire and saying your house wasn't built properly in the first place? Was that the analogy?
Yeah, and look, the president keeps telling people, you know, you might be losing your plan, but it was a lousy plan anyway. I've talked to people in my own district who have lost and had their plans canceled, and they like their plans. Just the fact that some unelected bureaucrat in Washington doesn't like their plans, that's not a decision that Washington politicians should be making. If somebody back home and they're a hardworking taxpayer has health insurance they like for their family, they're the ones that should make that decision. And if they lose the plan because Washington doesn't like it, you know, there's some people in Washington that are going to be held accountable for those decisions.
Listen, there's a poll out today that shows the majority of Americans agree with that point. Sir, we'll be watching for the hearing. Thank you for your time, sir. Steve Scalises. Thank you. All right, Martha.